yeah, we want to do like 50%, 50%, 50%, like so 1-to-1 ratio soba noodles on our Rich one machine. And so it's manually like, yeah, mixed up like all the buckwheat flour and wheat flour already in there. Like, so the total of 4 kilograms, total of 4 kilograms, right? And so we're going to mix it, but like because we have buckwheat flour and wheat flour in it, so we want to just mix it just with the solid ingredients to sort of like blend them up like well. And for soba noodles, right? Like so, we only use water. We only use water, no salt, no kansi, just water. And so it's very simple. It's very simple, ingredients. So what what we need to like kind of think about is like so hydration ratio, right? Hydration ratio, and and then kind of buckwheat flour you use, and the kind of like binding ingredients you use, right? So again, like we're using wheat flour, and then but like if you're using like wheat flour with like 8% protein, or like if you're using wheat flour with you know well 11% or so, like higher the protein, the harder. So the final noodle texture you're getting, you want them hard, you want them to be softer. And so we add water, right? You just add water and this the mixing lid, and with the small holes in it, and so the water is added to the solid English flours little by little to render good hydration. Yeah, so you really need to think about it's like yeah, begin with the end in mind, right? So what kind of like noodle texture, like soba noodles, like we want to have, right? And then of course like higher the buckwheat flour mix ratio, of course like stronger the buckwheat smell, right? And then of course like color will be darker, like soba noodles, right? And yeah, so that's the sort of kind of aroma, buckwheat aroma part, right, aspect of it. But like the noodle texture, right? When you're thinking about noodle texture, okay, so you want to serve them cold, right? You want to serve them cold, like when we serve them cold, of course, like we chill them in the ice water, so that yeah, that like tighten the noodle texture. So naturally like making them tighter, like firmer, and then but like at the same time, like how much bite, right? How much bite, like we want the customers to experience, right? And so okay, so we want to yeah, usually the super noodles, like noodle size is like 1.5 millimeter. That's kind of like a normal size for soba noodles. Yeah, of course, like Sarashina soba noodles like tend to be like thinner, but like usually 1.5 millimeter, right? But like there's a tennis like trending. What's been trending in Japan, like especially in Tokyo, is that like, well, they have like, yeah, it's like a inaka soba, like it's like that's very dark, right, dark in color, and then because they use a lot of like the sambanko third grade flour, like they mill the buckwheat seeds, and they like just the outer part of buckwheat like husk and everything, right? Um, that's where a lot of the fibers are, and then so they put in the flour like in the making the noodles. They have dark color, right? And then they have it contains a lot of protein, like almost like 15%, so that it's hard, right? Higher protein, the harder. And even though it's hard, right, and they make noodles like really thick, right? So you get the this sensation like when you bite into this noodle, like they are thick and hard, right? So you get like super deep, like really strong bite, right? When you bite into them. So and then some of the shops actually serve them cold, and so you get this dipping sauce that's um, pretty intense in flavor, and so you're dipping like this like really thick, hard soba noodles into the dipping noodle, and then like like then you're having like so much biting sensation like in your teeth, right? And then that's what was trending like well like few years ago actually in Tokyo, but I'm not sure like if it's still going on, but but that's one way to go, right? So you really have to sort of think about, you know, what kind of um, final version of like like soba noodle you want to make, right? And yeah, so like after 4 minutes, um, yeah, so we should like open the lid and then like kind of clean the inside. Yeah, there's some like dough that's like stuck on the blades like walls of the mixer. So you want to sort of like yeah mix them up the other dough, right? So that the what we're trying to reach or achieve is that we're trying to get that water distributed like evenly right throughout the dough. Just to achieve like good hydration dough, right? And so we add the rest of the water and then, mix it for another 6 minutes. And yeah, I wish you guys are here to like kind of, you know, smell it. Like when you open the lid, right, like, you get this good smell of like buckwheat and yeah, so even though like it's just 50% buckwheat, which is just 2 kilograms of flour, like against the 2 kilograms wheat flour, right? It's a strong smell of buckwheat that you get. Right? It's like it's very subtle kind of, but like yeah, some people love it, and kind of soba eaters, right? Yeah, there's fairly good um, population of like soba eaters in especially in city of Tokyo, and there are so many soba shops, traditional ones like kind of um, yeah, contemporary ones, and yeah, so yeah, there are a lot of still a lot of like you know soba eaters in Tokyo, and that's where probably the most advanced style of like soba cuisines are, and yeah, soba's been around like for, almost like 400, well, like longer than that, but like, like as far as like, like regular people like started eating soba noodles, like it's been like 400 years, right? 400 years, that long time, but like, well, it's very recent. People started like kind of, um, yeah, like kind of, well, being innovative, like, kind of started like creating like some, kind of innovative like soba menus, and yeah, and there are a lot of kind of like people associate like soba with like soba cuisine with like kind of bar, like soba kind of drinking place, alcohol, and so you go into some like fancy soba shop like restaurant, and like you get like all these like appetizers like kind of before. So like you sort of like going there like to have like an enjoy drinking, right? Drinking some sake or something, and then just eating like kind of small plates, right? And then the last, right? Like like last, like probably second from last or something, and you get yeah, the soba, right? You get probably cold soba or so, like something like the dipping sauce, and then finish with a dessert or some. That's like kind of soba bar, yeah, restaurant that like there are many of them in Tokyo, like in Japan, and so it's kind of like it's a bit different from like ramen bars that like got really popular like around the world, but like soba shop, yeah, is like it's very and different like forms of like soba eating cultures. There are like being cultivated in Japan. And yeah, I mean, there's some soba shop that like just you can just go in there, like it's like kind of stand like um, kind of like stand, right? You can just go in there, like order like a bowl of soba for like $3 or something, and then you just eat it like standing. Um, or and then but like then the backbeat ratio of that kind of soba, right, is maybe it's like um, 2 to like 8, like 2 being like buckwheat flour and the 8 being like wheat flour or something, because buckwheat flour is basically way more expensive than wheat flour. So well, depending on where you get it, but um, so it's soba is very, I mean, like it's a fascinating noodle cuisine that you can explore and start maybe like you can start offering at your restaurant. And yeah, and then like one of the reasons why we are doing this, right? Like why we're making like soba noodles on the ramen machine, right? Is that like a lot of like ramen shops like using this machine, ask us like to see like what types of like what kind of like other types of noodles like we can make on this ramen machine, right? And soba noodles is like just one of the most frequent asked type of noodle that they well assets like what kind of noodle they we can make on a ramen machine. And yeah, of course like other types of noodles like noodle machine and stuff like that. But like well, soba noodle is like kind of unique in a way that like it's very Japanese, and it's very different from like any other types of well noodle cuisines. Well, because the probably because of the ingredients, right? But yeah, it's a very good like we can't like it may be like difficult for us to like achieve the like kind of gluten-free status, right? Like making soba noodles in our ramen machine, but still the soba noodles we can make on the ramen machines are very delicious. So yeah, if you guys are interested in like making soba noodles in your ramen machine, yeah, please try it. It's worth it. Worth the effort. So after we're done with the mixing, right? And if you're making like ramen noodles, we may want to rest this dough, right? Rest this dough to activate the enzyme or something, like to kind of promote the enzyme to like get that well wheat flavor going, and like further like hydrate the dough and stuff. But because this is soba noodles, right? As we said, like we have to hurry up and like make them into noodles, and then like cook them and then serve them to customers. So otherwise, like we would lose that aroma, right, of buckwheat. So we are going straight to noodle making, and yeah, so we're feeding the dough. So this process, right? These processes are like exactly the same as like when we're making ramen noodles. And so we are feeding the dough, right? We're feeding the dough to the roller unit, right? And then like to make rough sheet of dough. And yeah, this dough like even though it's like the hydration ratio like it's pretty low, it feels like it's like medium to sort of like high hydration ratio. And buckwheat is kind of well, it's very sticky. It's very sticky, so well, it tends to stick to the roller and the scrapers and everywhere. So yeah, this is one of the tough like types of noodles to make on the ramen machine. But Yeah, so like we are doing the this process like called like rough forming, and so we basically making rough sheet of dough, right? From this well these like crumbles of dough, and yeah, and then so the sheet we are making like is still pretty rough, like very fragile. So we need to be like careful, like handling the dough sheet, right? Um, but again, like this aroma of like buckwheat, we are making it just it's pretty kind of unique, yeah, smell that and the buckwheat is actually well grown like everywhere in the world, right? And but like the quality and conditions are like very different, like from region to region. And this particular buckwheat that we are using today, is from like Hokkaido, like that's the most northern part, like Japan, and yeah, Hokkaido produces a very high quality like buckwheat flours, and um, yeah, so like Hokkaido buckwheat is it's pretty expensive, and the other thing, like, we want to share with you guys is that, like, well, when we store buckwheat flour, right? Buckwheat flour, we actually store them like freezer instead of refrigerator, and because we want like freeze the buckwheat flours to, like we keep it from like losing the aroma, right? Losing the aroma like smell of buckwheat. So we always freeze them. And yeah, so that's a good tip. And because it's expensive, right? The usually like even the like biggest bag, like biggest like bag like buckwheat like comes in like probably like 10 kilograms, right? Compared to like maybe 25 kilograms like wheat flour bag. Um, but yeah, some of the buckwheat flours that we get like in Japan, right, are yeah, like probably like 3 to 4 times more expensive than the wheat flour. So that's why a lot of yeah, the soba shops, right? Like, well, not expensive ones, like no fancy ones, like a lot of soba shops like that are like kind of casual, like fast food type, right? They make soba noodles, are that are just as I said, like 20%, 30% buckwheat, right? And then the other 80 to 70% are just wheat flour, like which is way cheaper than the buckwheat flour. So, but they still call these noodles like soba noodles, um, even though like they are made like you know less than 50% of them like made from buckwheat. Yeah. So so just constantly like feeding the dough and like to roll, and then like making the dough sheet, right? Still pretty fragile, but yeah, but it's a start. And yeah, so the buckwheat is like really sensitive, right? It is really sensitive. Like, so we have to freeze them, and then and if you like leave it like in the room temperature, and then like for quite a while, and then there's like germs like growing in there, and then like it's very sensitive to the temperature, everything. So like enzyme gets pretty active, and then it causes the bacteria to like kind of bacteria like growing and stuff like that. So that's also why like we want to yeah, put them in freezer, right, and to keep the temperature low. And so the next process, right? So this is where, like I said, like we work the dough, right? Like, so we making the dough firm, right? We are making dough firm, and developing the so like dough, right? The structure, and yeah. So we want to like we are sticking the dough together, we're combining the dough together, right? Like two different dough into one, and yeah, so that from if we do this process right, then the dough gets way firmer, like stronger, right, than before, and so it's very like it's a must process that like we need to do like to make the soba noodles that are firm enough, that like good texture. Yeah, but the yeah, but the dough sheet is like still pretty fragile, so like we need to handle with care. So really yeah, depending on the well where you go, like which soba shop you go, right? Like traditional soba shops, like they're like expensive, like that. Well, there are some soba shops that like well with a have a history of like 200 years, like 20 years, like some of them like 300 years, like so you can still go to go eat at these soba shops, right? And then that's where you may be able like witness that like they use this their own like milling machine inside their shop, right? And then so they mill the buckwheat seeds like right in front of you, and then like so they get like all this flour, right? But like it's a very slow process, right? And then typically what you see is that like there's no machine, right? They only the milling machine, but like then it's usually like stone milling, right? And then these guys make soba noodles by hand, right? By hand. So it's a well, it's like art, right? It's the art of yeah, noodle making, and like these guys, yeah, must have like practiced, like must have like well um, done this training like for maybe like 10 years or something to be able to like perform in front of like the customers, right? And so they make well everything by hand, right? So like they make well from scratch the flour, and then hydration, they do them by hand, and then they make them into well the chunk of dough, right? Chunk of dough, and then it's like well form them into well flatten them, right? And then like they start like well sheeting, right? They start sheeting like with using the wooden stick, right? Long wooden stick, right? And then they do it by hand, like beautifully rolling it out, right? And then they make like really large sheet of dough, right? Make a really large sheet of dough, and then they fold them into I fold them like 4 or 5 times, right? And then they cut it like with this big knife, right? Big knife, like big soba knife, and yeah, so that's beautiful. Like I've seen like yeah, people do it, and then yeah, and then we have a partner actually like in New York. He's Mr. Chef Kutani, and well, he's been making soba noodles by hand like almost 20 years, and yeah, so like if you guys Google Mr. I forgot his name, but like forget his first name, but like Kutani, right? Chef Kutani, New York, right? Soba or something like that, and then you should be able to like find like some video, right, of him like making soba noodles by hand, and you guys should check it out. Like it's very, I mean, it's beautiful, it's artful. Yeah, that's worth watching. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so usually, yeah, soba noodles like used to be, I mean, used to be like still, but like made by hand, right? But yeah, of course, like we can make well pretty delicious soba like using this kind of machine too. So yeah, and yeah, and then like yeah, Mr. Kutani, the chef Kutani is the well lives in New York, right? And he from time to time like he well like offers his Soba course, right? As well as like some in-person special noodle event. So if you're interested in like well um, kind of talking to him, like yeah, I mean, like if you happen to live in the United States, please check out his website as well as like ours. We have some information on him as well. So yeah, as you maybe like kind of sense, right? Like by looking at like how Megumi's been like handling this soba noodle, right? It's very sticky, right? It's very sticky. This kind of stickiness probably comes from like the fact that like so buckwheat is seed, right, instead of grain. Like buckwheat seeds, that may be why like it has like all these um, property that like kind of makes it like really sticky, and so that's why like it sticks everywhere, like in the roller and roller scrapers and stuff, and um, yeah, but when we making like even higher the buckwheat mix ratio dough and soba noodles, and then higher hydration soba noodles on soba machine, right? Then we don't have like this kind of problem because we first make the dough, right, into chunk of dough first, right, and then we're gonna start rolling it out, right? We're gonna start rolling it out, but like in that case, in that time, like we dust it like really well, like we dust like so much, so that like there's no way that like we're gonna get this yeah problem like the soba, I mean the buckwheat dough like was sticking everywhere. Yeah, but like from this point on, right, we can start dusting, right? Because we are done with this process, so we can start dusting. So basically, higher the like the buckwheat ratio, right, and higher the hydration ratio, yeah, the stickier, right, stickier and wetter, this dough is going to be, and that means that like well the harder, right, going to be for you to kind of handle this dough on this machine, right? So that's some other things like you want to have in mind, like before you start making the recipe, right? And yeah, we want to control the amount of dusting, and we definitely want to dust it well, right? Even though it's like the hydration is like less than 35%, like yeah, this thickness sort of like adds the to the sort of like hydration kind of feel, right? And then kind of you feel like wetter than well the actual hydration that we are doing, and so that's where you have to like dust it really well. Yeah, so we are almost done with this well combining process. And after this, right, like, we all we have to do is just thin it, right? Thin it to the final thickness before we start cutting to noodles strands. Okay, so that's done. Okay, so after combining process, like all we have to do is just thin it, right? Thin the dough gradually to the final thickness, and so let's start thinning, and from this point of like we can move fast about like because it's soba noodles, you know you want to go kind of well with care, and it's uh, yeah, well, for those of you like who don't know like what kind of smell buckwheat well generates, is that like it kind of like because it's a seed, right? It's a seed. So it's like kind of sweet smell, and yeah, and then like it kind of also depends on like what part of buckwheat seed that's mainly used for the buckwheat flour, and so the first grade, like Ichibanko, right? First grade buckwheat flour is like in the core, right? In the core of the buckwheat seed, right? And then that's mostly starch, and it's very soft, and then yeah, but and it's not like it's the opposite, like kind of being sticky, right? So like um, it's very hard to make it into noodles, so like because it's almost starchy, right? And then the second grade, the Niganko is the one that's mostly used for soba noodles, and it's got like real kind of sweet smell to it, and then yeah, and then but Sambanko is the third grade flour, is the one that you see as like kind of dark, yeah, dark, yeah, the soba noodles, and yeah, it's got like really strong buckwheat smell, and then it's hard, right? It's hard because it's got like them like highest protein content, and so like it really kind of depends on yeah kind of noodle you're making, kind of soba noodle you're making. So and but the one we are using today is a Nibanko second grade buckwheat. So that's a kind of color that you get like from using the second grade buckwheat flour, and then that's probably why like we smell a kind of sweetness from this buckwheat. Okay, so it's gone through roll gap like 2 millimeter, and the actual thickness is 2.2 millimeter. So there's difference of like 0.2 millimeter. So it expands, right? It expands like after it's gone through the roll gap. So yeah, bounces back, and but not by much, like 0.2 millimeter. And so we're going to cut it, right? We're going to cut it into noodles, and it's the kind of cutter we use. It's number 18. That's 1.7 millimeter width, and I say this is like kind of typical kind of soba noodle size. 1.7, like relatively thicker, but like it's a good size for soba noodles. Yeah, so noodle size is like it's almost like very important, when it comes to the noodle texture, and yeah, and I prefer a bit like thicker noodle size, because the thicker noodle like the harder, but like more bite to it, but like you can also have like kind of stronger buckwheat smell like when you bite into them. Okay, so noodles coming out, and right, and that they're kind of long, right? And then but it's easy for you to adjust the length of noodle, and yeah, like you can make it shorter, you can make it longer, depending on the serving size you want to decide for your restaurant. Like shorter, the smaller, right? And then longer, bigger serving size. So yeah, but basically that's that. And then like so you just portions out, right? Just portions it. So there's a cutter inside that like just rotates, right? As like the noodles are coming out, right? And then so just kind of portioning, one by one serving, one serving. And as the noodles are coming out, like we want to make sure the noodles are dusted well as well. Like it's like after that, like we are gonna cook them, but like if the noodles are not dusted well, then they sort of like stick together like pretty fast. So we want to make sure. Then kind of dusting powder, we're supposed to use, right? Or well, actually buckwheat flour, but like we are in this case like we're using the kind of cornstarch or something like, or no, just the starch, right? For dusting powder for the noodles, and they're basically processed palm tree starch, but yeah, but like we use like cornstarch, like potato starch, like anything that keep noodles from sticking. Okay, so we're getting about, so that was 4 kilograms of um, flour, right? 4 kilograms flour, like 2 kilograms of buckwheat flour, 2 kilograms of wheat flour, and uh, we've made about and six yeah 42 no yeah let's okay yeah 30. Yeah, the portion size is kind of big, so but we made about like 40, yeah, 40 portions, 40 servings out of 4 kilograms of flour. All right, so that's how you can make like soba noodles on a ramen machine, but let's move to our kitchen and cook some of them. And okay, okay, it's raining. It's rainy season in Japan, and we're moving to the kitchen where we're gonna show you like how we cook. And so when we are cooking noodles, it's not just soba noodles, but like any types of noodles. Like we wanna make sure that we prepare 10 to 20 times the amount of like the water, right? Amount of water, the point of water you want to prepare is like 10 to 20 times the weight of noodles that we're cooking, right? So if you're cooking just like 20 grams of noodles, right? Make sure you have like at least like 2 kilograms to like 4 kilograms of water prepared, right? Then boiling, right? Boiling before you put noodles in there, right? So that's very important. And because soba noodles are pretty sensitive, So the handling when we're cooking the soba noodles, like there are some tips that like we wanna share with you guys. So um, and then of course the aroma of the soba noodles, right, is important too. And this today like we just show you guys like how to cook the soba noodles for the cold, right, cold dish, cold noodle, and we call it zaru, right. This is which is it's probably most yeah the most like popular type of like soba dish that like especially during summer. I've seen a lot of people having this cold dish during the cold winter too. But like it's probably the most popular soba dish that um, in the world actually. Yeah, the cold dish, right? Like zaru, like hot soup noodle. Yeah, hot like we call it kake soba, right? Like yeah, well, it's like very basic, but like um, a lot of people like just probably go for a zaru, like well cold dish, no matter how cold it is outside, being like warm, like hot, to like but like noodles are cold, but yeah, well, like they can warm the noodles, and they can eat like kind of dipping, and yeah, there are different versions, but so make sure that like you have the water boiling, right? And then because when you put the noodles in there, like the cooking temperature, like it drops, right? So we want to make sure that we have enough water boiling before you put the noodles in. And then we think that it's probably like 2 minutes because we are like well chilling them, like washing them a little bit and like chilling them. So we'll do it like 2 minutes. And then after you put the noodles in, right, you need to lower the heat, right? Kind of put it like in just kind of like simmering, right? Uh, to the point where like just noodles is sort of like kind of, well, kind of, kind of swimming around in there. Yeah, so when the noodles cooking, wanna make sure we have the ice water, and we wash the noodles a little bit, like kind of gently wash the noodles to like remove the starch of the noodle surface, right? Yeah, starch like have this like kind of slimy so like texture, right? So like we wanna, some people don't like it, so want them like want to get rid of them to have kind of smooth texture, and at the same time like we are chilling the noodles like so to get a tighter noodle texture, right? And but like when we are washing the noodles, like we may lose the buckwheat aroma, so we wanna go like kind of gently when washing them. It's so kind of like yeah, washing like chilling and like kind of gently, right? Um, this is like 50-50, 5-5, like 5 to 5, like our noodles like it has like some gluten in it, in them, so they're kind of strong. But if you're handling like 100% buckwheat soba, then they are very fragile still. So you have to be really gentle like when you do that, right? And and when you serve it, right? When you serve it, like you sort of like kind of well, pinch like just a handful, like soba, and right, and then like well, kind of make it like kind of one bite sort of size, right? Well, it's probably like 2 or 3 bites, but like no, yeah, kind of like you made so like yeah like mountain like buckwheat noodles, few of them, and then yeah, kind of like make it easier for customers to eat, right? Yeah, so that's how you serve like cold soba instead of soba, right? And but this is 5 to 5 like ratio. Yeah, baku soba like you can make on the ramen machine. And as we did, right? So we didn't do the first part, like milling process. We didn't show like milling process, but like so this is basically like you need to go through this process, like milling and making the noodles and then cooking the noodles and serving them. Like these three processes like as quickly as you can, right? So that you don't lose you don't lose like any of the precious like buckwheat aroma, right? So yeah, so that's the key to making really good yeah, soba noodles on the ramen machine. And but that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys back in the next class. So thank you. Bye bye.